What do you like better, collecting sports cards or watching sports?
Collecting sports cards. I think it's basically, I mean, I love, if I had X dollars, I'm going to actually do an episode on this, but if I had X dollars to spend, would I rather buy a card, an unopened something, or a conglomerate collection? I'd probably pick the collection for the same amount of money, because then I'd look through and I'd see, and I wouldn't know what was going on. With a box, you have a kind of expectation of what's there. With the card, you know exactly what you're getting. So I'm more of a collector to open up a shoebox and not know what's in it. That's a lot of fun for me. So that's better than watching sports. But I'll go one better to answer your question. Have you had other people answer this question?
Not on my podcast.
Okay, well,
you
when
were
you
the
do,
first one.
oh, okay, but somebody's going to steal my answer maybe. But this is really what I do, and my awesome wife can vouch for this, is that I basically do both at the same time. I basically, when there's sports on, when I'm watching TV, and my wife has some interest, she loves the Cowboys and some other kind of stuff, and the Mavs and stuff. She's a sports fan. But when we're watching TV in our TV room, I'm usually going through a box of cards at the same time because, and I'll pay a lot more attention in the fourth quarter, but, in the game. So I'm doing cards and watching sports on TV. Now, obviously, if I'm at the Mavs game, I'm not collecting cards, and I love going, and basketball is the only season tickets I've kept, and the others I've given up just because but basketball's a lot of fun. It's never bad because you always got Luka and you've always got somebody else from the other team that's worth, well, they're all worth watching. They're amazing athletes. So, so basically I don't have to choose. I do cards when I'm watching sports on TV. But if I had to choose one, it's cards.
To me, that's the answer as well. But would it surprise you to know that the results have pretty consistently been 50-50? Yeah. And even like some really big collectors who have amazing collections and who love the hobby, when I ask them, what do you like better? You like watching sports or collecting better? They're like, well, I like watching sports better because, and they're like, their reasoning seems to be, if there weren't sports, then there wouldn't be cards. So therefore, we prioritize sports.
Let me give you the analytical, not sociological, but basically it's proportional to the number of the size of their collection. If they have a small collection, then they probably would rather watch TV, because it's like fantasy sports. If they have a huge collection like I do, which I, unfortunately, just because I got all these cards from when I was, a really active collector and all that stuff. So I've got too many cards. So the more cards you have, the more you have to spend time with them. But if I had, like we were saying about the Michael Jordan, if I was limited to only Michael Jordan, then there's the limit to how much time you can spend with your cards. But I have hundreds of thousands of cards, and I have too many. I'm trying to have less. So I'm organizing the cards. So the more cards you have, the more time you have to spend organizing. And don't have a lot of cards unless you enjoy them. So if I bought a box of cards, I would delight in going through them. So most people wouldn't. They think they'd only look for, is there something great in there? And that's a form of collecting that I've got some great cards too, but good cards. I like good cards. I like great cards. I don't like terrible cards. I do have cards that I discard that I give to charity. But there's a lot of cards that are going to find a home in somebody's collection. And that's why I like ComC, because I can just put a base card that's still a decent card and price it right and let somebody fill in something in their collection. That's good.
Indeed. Okay, last question. I ask this question of every guest, and I always will going forward. So it's only fair that I ask you as well. I've seen some guests on the show so far impressively maneuver out of this question. But it's just designed to be fun, but I totally get it if somebody doesn't want to answer. It can be a polarizing topic, so there's no pressure to answer this question. But the question is this. Name one player or athlete who you think is undervalued currently, and one player or athlete who is overvalued currently.
I'm going to answer a little bit differently. I'll try to stay with basketball because I think that's your favorite thing, because it's just to narrow it down. But Scottie Pippen has singularly gone from undervalued to overvalued. Not in the course of this podcast, but over the course of the last few months. So I think Hakeem Olajuwon, if you look at it, international hobby, is probably still undervalued, but less so. Charles Barkley, in spite of his braggadocio, really could back it up. But I could see that he could still be undervalued. Just because I think that, again, in basketball, you get a bad rap if you played in the 60s and you weren't on the Celtics, or if you played in the 90s and you weren't on the Bulls. So this counting championship rings is not fair because it depends on who your teammates were. So let's see, an overvalued guy. Well, I'm going to do an episode about this, and basically I've got to study up on some of the basketball analytics, but the basketball players that don't have the ball in their hands a high percentage of the time may be viewed eventually as overvalued right now, just because the fantasy and the advanced metrics is merging with the hobby to where that's why Trae Young has a good chance, but John Collins not so much. Even though physically amazingly talented, John Morant, they're gonna give him the offense a little bit more. In fact, when he comes back, he basically could do seemed like he could do what he wanted to, but he was too respectful. So he is very overvalued if he doesn't assert himself in the fourth quarter and say, "This is my quarter. Give me the ball. Clear out of the way. I'm able to get into the lane on anybody, and I'm either going to finish or I'm going to dish." And so he could go from being overvalued. He could be overvalued if he doesn't say, "I own the fourth quarter." So I'm not really answering your questions. Your questions
No.
are fun for you,
great
not necessarily fun for me, but it's okay.
Well, the audience loves it too when people give these answers.
No, but there's a whole bunch of others. Shaquille O'Neal, again, like you say, the narrative, he's the gentle giant, not so gentle giant, but he was amazing. He changed the game. In fact, there's not, this. So Penny Hardaway, it's not his fault that he got injured, but he was also amazing, but he was only amazing for 5 years or whatever. So is he undervalued or overvalued? His narrative is at his peak he was absolutely worth the price of admission.